Okay, let's see now. Where was I? Ascension into the Maelstrom. Bump. Okay, well, for those of you who have very sharp ears, you will recognize, I hope you'll recognize, I bet you Tim Lucas recognizes this. This is one of the main themes of one of my favorite horror films, known as The Night Walker, not to be confused with the Night Stalker, which was something else entirely on TV. This was a Columbia Pictures, William Castle directed, Rob White scripted, good old-fashioned scare fest not quite a horror film, but on the border. And it starred the great powerhouse couple team of Barbara Stanwyck and Robert Taylor, who actually had been man and wife and still possessed this great chemistry between them. And it reunited them, and it really scared the bejesus out of me. Whoops, I'm not supposed to be blasphemous. I don't know, though, that word, even on such an occasion as going into Easter, would be considered blasphemous. It's with a lowercase, B-E-J-E-S-U-S. But in any case, see if you can see this. They finally did put it out on DVD, on a Blu-ray, and it's pretty excellent. But I've been clamoring for years for release. For some reason, there were some copyright issues, and it was largely unavailable. I had a friend dub a VHS cassette for me for years, and I actually posted the intro on my Vimeo page, which you can see. Someone's also put it up on YouTube, but it's quite good. It's quite a clever animated preamble to the main action of the film. It's a disquisition on the lore and nature of dreams. And Paul Frees does the voice. Paul Frees was one of the greatest voiceover. He did some acting to characters. I can get into more about him, but you've heard his voice for sure in one form or another in your life if you've been exposed at all to television or radio, and he did some TV, but he narrates this little preamble, which is kind of a descent into the Maelstrom to set up the picture that follows, which is quite frightening. I've shown it to Caroline a couple of times, and she agreed with me, and it holds up pretty well. Nothing is as what it seems in this film, The Night Walker. But anyway, why I'm opening this Easter parade special here on the day before is I borrowed this theme on one of my early albums and wrote a song based around that motif because it was such a strong motif now. It's I'll play it down again for you. You hear the spooky guitar play this theme. It might actually be a detuned guitar. It's got this kind of a strange sound, and it might even be the great LA session guitarist Billy Strange playing it. I don't know. No one has ever come forward to identify who's playing it. Maybe it was Tommy Tedesco. But anyway, one of the LA guys. And it really is a haunting theme. It's very similar, actually, come to think of it, as Pink Elephants on Parade, which you may know from Dumbo, great Walt Disney animated classic. It's in the same harmonic universe there, with flatted fifths and sevenths throughout. But it's a meme, you know. It's like one of those things that just stuck in my mind. I didn't have to go back to the film to conjure it up, you know. It just burned itself in my brain when I saw it. So anyway, I have a song that featured the great Jonathan Cain on Swans, and I believe Gene Chain is the bassist on this. Gene used to come down all the way, drive down from Vermont to do gigs with me and record with me. He was quite a trooper, great player. And we went in the studio to record this, and I did the vocals on it. It was one of my early vocal efforts. And the name of this song, as it appeared on an album called Bad Boys of the Arctic, is They Can't Believe He's Risen Again. Okay. And now, how that ties in, besides the obvious foreshadowing of the resurrection with that title, how that ties into my life experience is that many years ago I ran a weekly horror film society at Yale University that became quite large there, looming in the presence of the undergrads and many graduate students, as a safety valve and a way to let off steam after the grind of endless studying at the cross-campus library or Sterling Memorial Library, all those libraries, or in your dorm room. I mean, that's what you sort of had to do to muddle through if you wanted to be a sterling academic performer in preparation for, I don't know, like about 90% of my freshman class declared themselves either pre-law or pre-med within the first week as freshmen there, which I found a little bit concerning, or I mean, I expressed a bit of consternation at that because I really didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. I wanted to play the guitar, that's for sure, and figure out a way forward in music. But at that point, there it was, and outside of starting a couple of bands while I was there and playing for my friends, playing loudly sometimes to an amp because there was a good natural echo on the old campus at Yale. Yeah, I wasn't exactly sure of my path forward with it. Although, a couple of years into it, you know, I saw a sign that was posted, we're looking for able-bodied seamen. No, we're looking for singers, dancers. They mentioned electric guitar. And what it was an opportunity to audition for a spot in the first European premiere of Leonard Bernstein's Mass, which was going to be conducted in Vienna at the Concerthaus by John Masseri in the spring of 1973. And all these aspiring participants could apply, and I applied, and I got the nod to play the electric guitar in that piece. That's another story. But that's what led me to actually set foot on European shores for the first time in Wien, one of my favorite places to play in the world still. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So when Bill Moseley and I formed this society, and now Bill became a very prominent actor in horror films. I want to like toot his horn a little bit. You probably, if you're into the genre, know about Bill. He's been on the cover of Fangoria magazine, among other stellar fanzines and periodicals devoted to the horror cinema as presently constituted. And he starred in a couple of Rob Zombie's great films, notably House of a Thousand Corpses, Rob Zombie's first essay into the genre, and the follow-up, The Devil's Rejects. And so, yeah, I'm very proud of Bill because he stuck with his guns. He always wanted to be an actor in films, and he found his niche for sure in horror, and he's still going strong. Well, anyway, so Bill and I set up, it started a Tuesday at midnight in an old dormitory on the old campus called Lindsley Chittenden. And in their auditorium room, which was called Lindsley Chit 101, where I had several classes that year, every Tuesday at midnight, we rolled down a movie screen and projected our favorite classics of the horror genre and some fantasy and sci-fi, and wrote liner notes and had a little booklet circulated. And this grew into a very, very popular pastime. And every Tuesday, sometimes it was Wednesday, it got moved a couple times, at midnight, a throng would assemble. Eventually we sold them beer and ham sandwiches. Thank you, Tom Strumolo, for your entrepreneurial zest back in the day. And people had a fine old time basically hooting and talking back to the screen if it was really a cheesy film. It was a little bit of foreshadowing of that whole Mystery Science Theater vibe, which I was quite enamored of on Saturday mornings, whereby they'd show an old clunker of a horror film, and Tom Servo and these other puppets would talk back to it and parody it as it was unspooling. So this went on regularly, unless it was so serious. A horror film such as Night of the Living Dead, which we showed there, we were really early on that tip, and nobody dared talk back during that. But anyway, one day, Bill and I met a kid who turned up early. I think that was how we met him, or somebody touted us. I have a friend here coming in from Vermont who's a poet, and so he wanted to read one of his poems before our show. So I met the guy, and he looked reasonably in character. He was fairly disheveled and wild-eyed, and he really smacked of an authentic bohemian-style poet in our views. So we said, go ahead. I mean, we were equal opportunity offenders, still are. So he got up I introduced him and said, we have a poet who's going to read before our film of the evening, which was the fantastic horror film Dead of Night, which is a compendium with 5 different directors that was made in Britain. I believe it's like 1948. I gotta check that date. Maybe a little bit earlier. But it's pretty great. It still holds up. It's quite dreamlike and disconcerting. It's got that famous Room for One More sequence. Also, the dummy that talks back to its ventriloquist, played by Michael Redgrave, who goes quite off the rails. It's sinister and captivating, delightful film. So the poet got up there, and he brought with him a brown paper bag, which obviously had a bottle of juice, probably some kind of cheap wine in there, from which he kept taking swigs from. And he wound up, he said, this is called Easter. Now you see why I'm telling you the story. First line of which was, they can't believe he's risen again. And that's as far as he got. That's as far as he got, because immediately a general catcalling erupted and a hooting by the crowd, who just didn't have any patience for this and thought the whole thing ludicrous, and maybe, it was some kind of stunt or something. They didn't know how to take it but to laugh at it. And this enraged him, so he started over again. They can't believe he's risen again. And the volume level rose even louder. I mean, these Yaleys were merciless, in their superiority to this guy, this struggling to get his poetry out in quite a sincere way. I mean, from our point of view, Bill and me, because we thought it was a reasonable idea. And I like to encourage people to do their thing creatively, always. He said it one more time, they can't believe he's risen again, and the level just got ear-splitting. And then he lost it, and he shrieked, shut up! A little bit like Jim Morrison, right, and some of those live tapes at the Hollywood Bowl. And people were stunned and didn't say anything. There was dead silence, and then it came back, redoubled, even louder. And he just went really mental, and kept trying to read that first line, didn't get past that first line. And out of frustration, finally, he went as if to take a lectern, which was still up on the stage, that a professor would lecture from, this columnar wooden lectern, and attempt to push it forward like Quasimodo on the parapet of Notre Dame into the audience, into the people in the first row, out of rage and general frustration. And a guy jumped up to defend the troops there in the front row, and then another guy I knew jumped up and socked that guy in the face. And meanwhile, Bill snuck up on stage and grabbed a box of blue books. This box was a cardboard box that contained all the books that you would write your essays in. They were called blue books, and it was like lined paper in there, and you could answer essay questions. And they had a lot of them lying around, so he took the box, threw it up in the air, and then said, start the film. And we hustled the guy off the stage, and as the film began, you saw drifting down from the ceiling, wafting slowly towards the floor, many blue books. It was very poetic, but horrifying too at the same time. And he ran out of there, he tore out of there in a rage. And I'm not sure, I hope he didn't injure himself. I heard various reports. But after this film, which is about a 2.5-hour film, as I recall, very long, people were still shaken by the events, and people came up to me and Bill and said, did you guys plan that? That was not funny. And I was like, no. It just happened. It certainly was not our intent. But anyway, all those years later, I used it for the song "They Can't Believe He's Risen Again," which is it was definitely. I was trying to cheer myself up in a way by writing a lyric that encouraged. I was encouraging people to keep going, which is, I think, very important. You should never say die. You gotta do it to death. Certainly, if you want to be a creative artist in this world, in any format, you gotta just keep coming in people's faces, or they'll write you off as a loss. Isn't it the truth? But the lyric, as I recall, was: "The radical, risible, visible man, he rises when ready, and takes his command, he shakes him and blah, blah. They can't believe he's risen again, he's risen again, he's risen again." So, yes, it was like recasting my career in the form of a horror film monster who just kept getting up off the slab to, wreak his vengeance or, just, anyway. I'm one of the kindest, nicest people. What can I say? So, I could sing Easter Bonnet here. I got Caroline here. She's got some good ones, man. I've given her some beautiful... In your Easter bonnet, she's smiling now, with all the frills upon it, you'll be the grandest lady in the Easter parade. I'll be there in clover, and when they look me over, I'll be the proudest fellow in the Easter parade. Then it takes you to Fifth Avenue. It's a great lyric. On the avenue, baba. Fifth Avenue, the photographers will snap us, and you'll find that you're in the rotogravure. Now, how many of you know what a rotogravure is? This is an archaic word in 2021. And what's today's date? It's a countdown. 4, 3, 2, 1. Bingo. Let's just go. You'd be surprised what you can do with 6 strings in the monitor. Okay, Vic Mizzy, ladies and gentlemen, who I believe is from upstate New York, or Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. And he went on to do also the Munsters theme, which is not that far afield from this either. But like I say, I think it's all pink elephants on parade, which would be Lee Harline, who was Walt Disney's main composer. It's very interesting, the cross-fertilization and kind of like borrowings and leavings of the whole history of music. And, you know, I find it fascinating playing Spot the Influence and like who came first, what's the version of this stuff always, because everything that's considered innovative is usually pretty much, guaranteed to be built on the rubble of the past, or maybe something well constructed that will also endure. But I could tell you another example. I mean, if you know the film The Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe, that's a beautiful theme that I do play on acoustic guitar, and that's on an album I did for Zorn called Busy Being Born, which came from the famous Bob Dylan song, It's All Right Ma. He not busy being born is busy dying. Still true, always true. And in any case, this piece, Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe by Lee Harline, sounds a lot like other music. And usually Lee Harline would be the guy who'd like come up with the original piece, and other people would sound like Lee Harline. But trying to think it's so reminiscent when you get right down to it. I'll tell you what it is. It's like Sylvia Fine, and who was her composer partner, but it's Hans Christian Andersen. I'm Hans Christian Andersen, and yes, a great Danny Kaye film. But that theme, the middle section of the theme is heavily borrowed for the Seven Faces of Dr. Lowe, which leads me to believe that a producer somewhere along the line, this often goes on. I could give you numerous instances of my own experience here, but the producer would say, I want something that really sounds a lot like this piece. We got to get that flavor in here. And sure enough, somebody must have said that to, I guess George Pell produced that movie. Probably suggested it to Lee, and so some borrowing went on. We got to get a flavor, and like, what better way to get a flavor but cop most of the same notes. But when you get right down to it, in our system, our little musical solar system, there are in the West at least only 12 notes, and they're all good ones. So, the question of recombining them in something that's going to be startling new is not something that is sure to produce fresh results after all these years. So something is always reminding me of something else, and this is kind of a curse that I have to live with as far as enjoying new music, because at least in my own work, I mean, you can argue, and I've done some borrowing, but I try to give everything enough quirky qualities to set it apart from mainstream fare. I just thought it was your mission. I mean, I know Blue Oyster Cult, this is another group I liked, really went out of their way to do music that was not easily duplicable. Is there such a word? Duplicatable? But anyway, I digress. I want to thank Verdiana Garau today, who's been working really hard, and she's on it in Italy for me, as far as like getting mentioned in the media for my latest compilation, which I had here, but I guess I shipped it out to Dominique Avery yesterday. I hope, Dominique, you got that. Today there's a 9 out of 10 review in Audio Review, which is by a very, very prominent Italian critic over there, Mr. Bertoncelli, and I want to thank him. Yeah, it's always, I mean, it's certainly gratifying. It's embarrassing, though. But if I don't tell you about it, how are you going to find out about it? Therefore, I think there's nothing wrong with shameless self-promotion. And on that note, I'll leave you for the afternoon, and I hope you all have a lovely Easter. Really, I do. And, the whole theme of this should be rebirth, regeneration, regrowth. And so that's the way forward here. Even in a pandemic, you want to make lemonade out of these lemons. So thanks for tuning in. I love you, Caroline. I hope you appreciate it. I will serenade you. Okay, talk to you soon. Bye now. Love you.